Okay. So we have discussed two limits in fluid flow. One was the Bernoulli equation, which is the inviscid limit. So inviscid flow. And the other limit that we saw was creeping flow limit. Right? We said that for inviscid flow, viscosity approaches zero. So in crude terms, we can say that viscosity approaches zero. And for creeping flow, viscosity approaches infinity. In reality, what is happening here is, when can we apply these limits? We can apply these limits when actually the ratio of viscous to inertial forces that approaches zero. So when viscosity is negligible as compared to the other forces which arise due to the velocity of the fluid, which are inertial forces. So we can say when Reynolds number approaches, so what is Reynolds number? This is inertial to viscous forces. So when viscous forces are negligible in comparison to inertial forces, Reynolds number will become very large, or Reynolds number approaches infinity. And in creeping flow situation, it will be opposite of this. Inertial to viscous forces will approach zero. That ratio will approach zero. So these two limits we have seen. We derived the equation for inviscid flow, which we called Euler equations. And from Euler equations, when we integrated that, we got Bernoulli equation. Okay. Which can be written as P by rho g plus V square by 2g plus Z or Y, whatever you call, in the direction of gravity. This is the distance, this is the height from a reference point. So this is a constant along a streamline. Okay, this is the equation that we derived. So if you want to write this equation along a streamline for 2 points 1 and 2, then we can write this as, because this expression, the left hand side, is a constant along this streamline, so you can write P1 by rho g plus V1 square by 2g plus Z1 is equal to P2 by rho g plus V2 square by 2g plus Z2. Okay. And creeping flow equations, similarly we derived. These were the Navier-Stokes equations which we derived, and the dimensionless form was del P equal to del square U, and there was some factor here. This is actually mu del square U if written in dimensional form. Okay, and if there is gravity, you will have that rho g term also along with this. Okay, and there will be a negative sign with rho g because we have taken del P to the other side so that it becomes positive. So there will be rho g. Okay. Now, now we'll discuss some applications of Bernoulli equation again. We already discussed some applications, and I gave an assignment in the last class which concerned creeping flow. That was the flow of a glacier down an inclined plane. Okay. So now we will talk about flow through pipes. So this is very common in several industries. flow through pipes, okay, whether it is crude oil industry, or some slurry transport. In several industries you have um, the food industries, where some mixture of let's say some sauce or some syrup or some chocolate, molten chocolate, let's say, is flowing in a pipe, and you want to design the piping system, and you want to design the pump which can pump that much liquid to a given distance. So how much power should you have on that pump? That will be decided by the losses that take place in the pipe because of the friction, because of the viscosity. There are definitely some losses. Okay, some pressure will be lost. So if you have to transport, let's say, a given mixture down a very long pipe, then you need a pump of a higher capacity, as opposed to, let's say, if you want to transport that same mixture to a smaller length, L. Okay, so you require a higher delta P pressure difference here than the second case. So this is intuitive because there will be more frictional losses as the fluid travels here. Okay, because it is a longer pipe. Also, you can imagine that if the pipe is thinner, let's say you have a thin capillary and you want to transport, let's say, a mixture, say, or a very viscous liquid, say honey, you want to transport in this pipe, and there is a thicker pipe of more cross sectional area, and you want to transport honey. So in the pipe where the cross sectional area is smaller, you will require more pressure difference to flow the honey at the same flow rate or velocity, right? It will be difficult to push the honey or a viscous liquid through a thinner pipe, right? These are some experimental observations, and we will see how we can incorporate them in the equations. But here, obviously, we don't want to solve the entire Navier-Stokes equations to derive this pressure difference for a given velocity and length and diameter of the pipe. So what we do is we use Bernoulli equation, but with some modifications. Bernoulli equation, while deriving the Bernoulli equation, we assumed that there was no viscosity, right? It was inviscid approximation. So how do we incorporate this viscosity there? So what we'll do is we will write the Bernoulli equation here. Let's say this is a pipe. This point is at height Z1, velocity V1, pressure P1, and there is another point downstream somewhere, and the flow is in this direction. This is Z2, V2, and P2. Now Bernoulli equation can be written as P1 by rho g plus V1 square by 2g plus Z1. We have already seen this. Here the first term P1 by rho g is the static term. So static pressure difference. How does the fluid gain energy with respect to pressure in the fluid? This is also known as the pressure head. The second term is the dynamic term, which relates to the fluid's kinetic energy. Okay, how does the fluid gain energy in terms of kinetic energy? This is also known as velocity head. And the third term is the gravity head. So these are known as heads. We have already discussed about this, and we also discussed that the dimensions of each of these, the units of each of these terms, that is the unit of length, right? Because z has unit of length, it is a height, so this is known as head for that reason. And how can you measure pressure in terms of head, pressure in terms of a height? That also we have discussed earlier. um, there is a unit of pressure in terms of height, so that is called mmHg, millimeter of mercury, right? So here you can see it is millimeters, which refers to a height or length. How it is measured in millimeters of mercury? Just to give a quick recap, you have already seen this in your school or maybe somewhere. Let's say there is a bulb here with some reduced pressure. This can be vacuum, okay, or it can be some pressure P naught, let's say. This is sealed, and the external pressure from the atmosphere is P atmosphere, let's say. Then what will happen is, if P naught is less than P atmosphere, according to Pascal's law, you will have the same pressure here as the outer pressure at the same height. So this liquid will rise inside this tube up to certain height h, okay, where the pressure is balanced. So this pressure P naught, the force that this pressure is applying on the fluid interface, and here the pressure P atmosphere is being applied. So these pressures multiplied by the area of cross section, the area on which the pressure is acting, that will give you the force, right? So P atmosphere, that is the lower one, times the area inside the tube minus P naught times the area inside the tube. This will give you the net force acting on that cylindrical volume of fluid. So this should be equal to mg. Only then will this be a static situation, the equilibrium situation, okay, where the fluid will remain at that height h. So from here you can find out, so what will be the mass of the fluid? This is density times volume. And what is volume? Volume is the area of cross section times height. So from here you can get the height that the fluid rises to. And what does this height depend on? You can see, for a given P atmosphere, for a given P naught inside the tube, area of cross section will get cancelled from both the sides. You can see this. It doesn't matter how big the tube is, how wide the tube is, or how narrow it is, it does not matter. And there is gravity that is also constant. What does it depend on is this density. So if you fill it with water, if this fluid is water that is rising in the tube, it will rise to a different height. If it is mercury, it will rise to a different height. If it is water, then okay, let's compare height for mercury and height for water. Can you please write which height will be more? Height that the water rises in the tube or height that mercury rises in the tube? Please write in the chat window. So you should know the densities of mercury and water. The density of mercury is higher than that of water. So we are writing which one will be higher, right? Okay. Yes, that is correct. Height H2O will be higher than height mercury. So that's why most commonly mercury fluid is used, so that you don't have to make a very long setup. Okay, very long tube. So density of mercury is about 13.6 times higher than that of water. So if you use water, then okay, what is the uh, height that mercury rises in if the P naught is 0 or it is a vacuum for atmospheric pressure? Do you know that? So that is actually 760 mmHg. This is the atmospheric pressure. That's how this unit works. They write 760 mmHg is the atmospheric pressure, because that's how much the mercury will rise in this tube. Okay, and can you guess how much the water fluid will rise in the same tube if you had a longer tube? So it will be 760 times 13.6 millimeter of water if we use that unit, millimeter of water. So 760 mmHg means 76 centimeters, right? So it is less than 1 meter. But if you had to construct the same equipment with water, then it will be much higher. Okay. So that's why we don't use water as a fluid, we use mercury. And also there are other issues with having water filled there. Okay. So now that is how height is related to pressure. Now we can write this is equal to P2 by rho g plus V2 square by 2g plus Z2. But there is a problem here. The problem is that we have not considered viscous effects in the pipe. What will happen is there will be some losses. The fluid will slow down or the pressure will decrease. Okay, something or the other is going to happen to one of these energy terms, one of these heights here. Either pressure head, velocity head, or gravity head has to decrease on the right hand side. So what we'll do is we will club all those losses into one term and we'll call that some head loss due to friction, HF, which is positive. So now you can see that because there is some positive HF on the right hand side, so this term P2 by rho g plus V2 square by 2g plus Z2 has to be less than the left hand side. Okay, because we added some HF which is positive on the right hand side. So we are saying that there is some loss HF in some head or in a combination of heads during the transport from point 1 to point 2. So we do this. And then we write some expression for HF. Now how can HF be written here? So now we have already seen, intuitively we know that the longer the pipe is. Yes, is there a question, Jatin?
Yes, sir. Sir, can you please explain this HF again? That what is this
Okay.
for?
Okay. So we want to include the effect of viscosity here somehow. Bernoulli equation assumes that it is an inviscid flow. It doesn't assume any viscous effect. So the left hand side, P1 by rho g plus V1 square by 2g plus Z1 has to be greater than P2 by rho g plus V2 square by 2g plus Z2 if there are viscous effects, because some head is going to go down, either pressure head, velocity head, or gravity head at point 2. So graphically, if I have to write this, let me plot. This is x, this is point 1, and this is point 2. And on the y-axis, I am going to plot this entire term p by rho g plus v square by 2g plus z. So what will happen to this entire head is that it will continue to decrease because of viscous effects, right, from point 1 to point 2. But Bernoulli equation says that this p by rho g plus v square by 2g plus z remains constant, okay, if you assume that there are no viscous effects. So this difference that comes into picture, we call this as HF, and we add this to the right hand side, we call that HF. Okay, so this is what Bernoulli equation neglected. This is the actual P2 by rho g plus V2 square by 2g plus Z2, this one, and this point is the actual P1 by rho g plus V1 square by 2g plus Z1, and the difference between these two, that is HF. So we are just saying that the left hand side for point 1 minus that same term for point 2 is equal to HF. That's all that we are saying here. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. And also, sir, if the first point and second point are on the same level, then Z1 and Z2 should not matter, right, sir?
Yes.
Because,
Yes, that
yeah.
is correct. So the
Okay, sir.
only conversion will take place between pressure and velocity heads. There will be
Yes,
no
sir.
effect on
Okay.
the gravity head. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is HF. Now, what does this HF depend on? How can we write this HF? That we'll discuss now. Now we have already discussed this actually here. The longer the pipe is, the more will be the frictional losses. The thinner the pipe is, more will be the frictional losses. This is an experimental observation. And if you actually plot the graph between how much the loss is, this kind of plot actually, with respect to length of the pipe and diameter of the pipe, you will see that HF will come out to be proportional to the length of the pipe. The longer the pipe is, the more are the losses, and inversely proportional to the diameter of the pipe. Okay, and this is also proportional to V square by 2g. Okay, so it is basically dependent on the kinetic energy of the fluid. If the fluid is not flowing at all, there will be no HF, of course. The fluid is static. If the fluid is flowing very slowly, then HF will be small. If the fluid is flowing at a higher velocity, there will be more viscous effects. Okay. So experimentally, you can see this. And then if you want to put a proportionality constant here, F times L by D, V square by 2G. This is the formula for HF. This relationship This is also known as Darcy-Weisbach relation. Okay, and F is known as Darcy friction factor. And again, this friction factor depends on a number of things. Here we have not considered the shape of the pipe, cross-sectional shape, the uh, roughness of the pipe. If the pipe has rough surface, the friction will be more. Okay, if it is smooth, the friction will be less, and so on. If it is a turbulent flow, the friction will be different. If it is laminar flow, it will be different. So it depends on a number of things, this F. So you can see that because we have included this HF here in Bernoulli equation, which was derived assuming that there is no viscosity, because we have done this, the entire analysis now depends on experiments, because theoretically this doesn't fit anywhere. We assumed that there is no viscosity, but we added this HF in the equation. So now we have to derive all this experimentally. How HF depends on different things. So now this friction factor F, this depends on, this is the function of Reynolds number with respect to diameter, and pipe roughness, epsilon by d. So what this epsilon by d is actually, so let's say this is your pipe. If you zoom in at the surface, you will see this roughness. Okay, so what is this height, this roughness height with respect to the entire pipe diameter? Okay, that is this epsilon by d. It can be average, it can be RMS epsilon, there can be several measures, but it depends on epsilon by d. And it can be duct shape, whether it is a square cross section, it is a circular cross section, elliptical cross section, triangular cross section. So it depends on all these things. For laminar flow, the expression is simpler. This is 64 by the Reynolds number, calculated with respect to the diameter of the pipe. So what will be the Reynolds number? RED, if we have to write this, it will be rho UD by mu. U is the velocity at that point in the pipe, d is the diameter, rho density, mu is viscosity. This is for a smooth pipe with laminar flow. And this is for a cylindrical cross-section pipe. So cylindrical pipe or circular cross-section. So this expression is 64 by Reynolds number. Okay. Now there are different things that we have missed here. There are several assumptions that we have made here. So let us talk about that. In a pipe flow, let's say the pipe starts from here. Okay. This is some velocity u with which the fluid is flowing outside the pipe, and suddenly it encounters this pipe. What will the velocity profile look like? Let us see that. Just at the entrance, what will happen is, because of the no slip boundary condition, exactly at the pipe surface, the velocity will become 0. But here, just below just inside the pipe, the velocity is still capital U. Okay. Now what will happen is the viscous effects. So at the pipe surface, so let's talk about this cross section now. At the pipe surface, velocity is 0. That layer which is close to the pipe surface will try to pull the layer beneath it. So this is 0. This velocity will go down because the layer close to the surface is pulling it. It is reducing its momentum. And this layer in turn is reducing the momentum of the next layer, and so on. Like this. Okay. Still in the core of the pipe, the velocity will remain capital U. And here all the velocity is capital U. Just at the surface it was 0. Now this transmission of the viscous effects towards the core of the pipe will continue, and after some length what will happen is it will become a parabolic velocity profile that we have discussed for a pipe. So this will become a parabolic velocity profile. After some length, which is known as LE, the entrance length. This is how the flow actually happens inside a pipe. This is how it is developing in the X direction along the length of the pipe. Okay. And after this point, it will continue to be like this. The profile will not change. It will remain parabolic. Velocity will not be a function of X anymore. So velocity is not a function of X. This condition is known as fully developed flow. When velocity is not developing anymore, velocity profile. So velocity is a function of radial direction, or if it is a 2D case, then it is a function of y, but it is not a function of this coordinate along the pipe, along the flow direction. So this entrance length again depends on Reynolds number of the flow. If the flow is at a very high speed, then entrance length will be longer. So this is a function of Reynolds number. Okay. So this is one thing, that velocity can be a function of X up to some distance. Let's say there is a pipe joined with another pipe. Okay. Then according to this Bernoulli equation and HF, the friction factor, the frictional losses that we have included there, what you will do is you will calculate the frictional losses HF, HF1 and HF2 for the two sections. Okay. Let's say you want to calculate the loss from point 1 to point 2. What you will do is you will calculate HF1, which will be F L by D V square by 2G, and here L and D will be the length and diameter of this section. Okay, and HF2 will be, so this will be L1 D1 V1, and HF2 will be for the next portion, and F1 also. This will be F2 L2 by D2 V2 square by 2G. But here what we are assuming is that the velocity suddenly becomes V2 here, just after this point. Okay, and it is V1 here. But actually it does not happen like that. The velocity gradually converts from V1 to V2. The streamlines look like that. Okay, it is not sudden jump from V1 to V2. So that part we are missing here. How velocity is changing in x direction in these equations. Because if you want to find out the exact velocity profile, you have to solve the entire Navier-Stokes equations with viscous terms. We cannot just apply Bernoulli equation without any information about how velocity is a function of x and y in these cases. But still, this approximation works fine if the pipe lengths are very big, if the pipes are very long, then these changes, this entrance length does not matter much. The entrance length is much smaller than the entire pipe length, so it works fine. Okay. Now the next assumption that we have is that this V1 and V2 is the velocity across the pipe. But actually we can see that it is a parabolic velocity profile. It is not actually a fixed velocity across the entire cross section. Okay. So this is the other, you can say, approximation that we have taken, that this V1 that we take here in V1 square by 2g and V2 square by 2g, and in this term the velocity head V velocity head terms V1 square by 2g and V2 square by 2g. Here we are assuming that V1 is the velocity in the entire cross section or V2 is the velocity in the entire cross section, but that is not true. That we know already. If the viscous effects are there. Okay. So what people do is they multiply this term with some factor alpha to account for that. And then you can find out what that factor should be so that it gives the correct answer. Okay. And we can find that analytically or theoretically. And similarly, this alpha will be multiplied here, alpha. Okay. And this is also known as momentum correction factor because V refers to momentum. V square term is related to the momentum of the fluid. So there are these correction factors that you can introduce in the Bernoulli equation to approximate the flow to a viscous flow without having to solve the actual Navier-Stokes equations. Okay. So this was about the approximations that we have taken. Also, there is one more thing. If the flow is not laminar, if it is turbulent flow, then if you measure the velocity at a particular point in the pipe, it will not be steady. You will get some signal like this. Okay, this is the velocity and this is time. This is at a particular point in the pipe. It will be very chaotic for a turbulent flow. But what we are talking about here, this V1 and V2, this is not a function of time that we have taken here. Because Bernoulli equation, we assume that it is steady state. So how can we apply it for turbulent flow? So what we do instead is we average it in a certain time window. Okay. You take the average velocity and you use that in the Bernoulli equation, the average velocity. So you can say that this is the average velocity. So you will take that as your V1 or V2, whatever. Now this loss that we have talked about, which depends on the length of the pipe, the diameter of the pipe, the friction factor. This is known as the major loss because that accounts for most of the loss in a pipe flow scenario. But there are other losses also which are known as minor losses. So this is called as major loss, HF, which depends on pipe length and diameter. There are other losses which can occur which are called minor losses. So these losses can be due to pipe entrance, this entry effect that we saw here, entrance length effect. So pipe entry and exit. There can be sudden expansion or contraction that we discussed here, sudden contraction or sudden expansion. There can be bends in the pipe which can cause losses, or there can be fittings in the pipe. Okay. There can be valves in the pipe, like you have a tap, there can be a valve which you can close or open or partially open. So that can cause some loss. There can be gradual expansion or contraction. Okay. All of these are minor losses. So if someone asks you to calculate loss, then you should sum up all the losses, major plus minor. But if they want some approximate result, then major loss is also fine if you give only the major loss, because that accounts for most of the loss. So these losses you can express in terms of kinetic energy again, because these also depend on the kinetic energy of the fluid, the velocity of the fluid. So H minor, this is proportional to again V square by 2G, and this can be written as K V square by 2G, and this K will depend on what kind of loss it is, pipe entry exit or sudden expansion, sudden contraction or bend, some it will be related to that. For example, for pipe sudden expansion or contraction, this K will depend on the diameter of the diameter of the bigger pipe and the smaller pipe. So it will be some combination of those two diameters and so on. So these formulae you can see in the book, or you can find in the on the internet also. So I'll give some problem on this in the next class. Okay. If you have any questions regarding this, you can ask now.
So, sir, we have to add these minor losses as well in the Bernoulli's equation.
Yes. So here we had HF and plus all the HMs due to all the minor losses. So that you have to add.
And if, sir, throughout the pipe there are no such points for minor losses such as pipe fittings, bends, etc., then can we only consider the major losses caused by the friction?
Yes. And even if there are bends and fittings, expansion, contraction, even then, if someone asks for the losses, approximate losses, then you can have just the major losses, because HM will be much smaller than HF. That's why they are known as minor losses. They don't account for much of the loss if the pipe system is very long. For example, at our homes, you have a pump on the ground floor and you have a tank upstairs, and the pump is pumping the water to the tank. Now you have several bends, valves, but the most of the loss is because of the length of the pipe. So if someone asks for loss, you can just give the major loss if they are not specifically asking for the minor losses.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And one more thing, sir. So
Yes.
will you take more assignments or quizzes before end sem, or
So I will give one more assignment and then there will be end sem. So I also wanted to know how many of you are on campus or not on campus. Are all of you on campus?
yes, sir. I guess 19 batch only I and Artina are here. So yeah, we both are here on the campus.
Okay. What about others? Uh, can you please write here who is not on campus? Because most of the people are on campus. So we can have a end sem exam in one of the lecture halls. Yeah. So I'll send a mail also regarding this so that we can have a physical end sem exam. And there will be
Yes,
one more
sir.
assignment. Yeah.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Stop here.